Tony Duell founded Centurion Health with a single and wavering mission. He simply wanted to glorify God by creating a company dedicated to making life better. He's got 2 decades of experience in pharmaceuticals, so therefore he's seen firsthand the need for honest, purpose-driven leadership in the health industry. He stepped out in faith to build something different, a company that puts people before profits, truth before trends, and mission before comfort. And he ain't here to pitch Centurion today, although I'm going to do a little bit of pitching for them by simply telling all of you guys to head over to Centurion.health and check them out. What he's here to talk about is something that a lot of you guys who are sitting on your tuchuses know way too much about. Our good friend 3.5 has just undergone a little bit of the process himself, but he was able to go through it and get to the other side because he actually had himself checked out. Just like we tell you guys to check your maintenance, man, you got to check the back end. Tony joins us this morning. Tell us what the topic is, Tony, and welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Jimmy, it's exciting to be here, and we're just ending the month of November, which was all about prostate health. And for men, that is a big, big deal because it's really the second leading cause of cancer death among men in the United States. About 230,000 people are diagnosed annually, and about 35,000 die from prostate cancer. But the good news is, like you just said, if you're doing regular maintenance and you're getting checkups, if you catch it early, there really is no reason to have a death sentence when it comes to prostate cancer because it can be caught early and it can be treated, and they've got some great treatments that are out there for it as well.
We were actually making a joke about this during Maintenance Matters, not about prostate cancer, but we were talking about the idea of the air brake system. And our good friend, the head of maintenance over at TA Petro, Kevin Lindsay, was, every time he comes on anything in regards to the wellness of your engine, he always says, start by checking your filters. And we both had this kind of insight that anything that you're supposed to do on a regular basis, if you don't do on a regular basis, you never do, because it's the regularity that actually makes it possible to happen. This is something that once people get past 40, and you have a really great quote that you sent me, if you're quoting movies from the aughts and checking your 401k, then you probably ought to think about also checking your prostate on a regular basis. This really should be something that you're doing, is it twice a year or once a year? What do you feel like is the best approach here?
Typically once a year is what we'll recommend, and they have even pushed that out to a little bit further depending on your risk factors. So there's some crazy things when it comes to the prostate. You're absolutely right. Anybody under the age of 40 really doesn't have to worry about it too much. As a matter of fact, I think the odds are 1 in 40,000 chance of you developing prostate cancer if you're under the age of 40. Once you get to 40, between the ages of 40 and 59, it's about 1 out of 38. So those odds go through the roof. And then from the ages of 60 to 69, it's about 1 in 15. So you really, really need to start checking your prostate about the age of 40. And then depending on your family history will depend on the frequency of it. So if you've got a family history, meaning you've got a dad or a brother who's had it, then you are twice as likely to develop prostate cancer, and therefore you need to be having a more regular maintenance or routine checkup than somebody else who doesn't. The other thing is, if you happen to be African American, we know that they are most likely to develop prostate cancer, and if you're of Asian descent, you're least likely to develop prostate cancer. So those are things that you certainly want to look at, and depending on that risk factor will depend on whether you go every year. And then some doctors will say every 3 years. If you've got low risk factors and you're relatively healthy, then they'll push it back. So it pays to really be preventative with what you're doing, staying in shape, and eating the right things, because we know all that adds up when we're talking about the prostate.
Troy, the other thing is that I go back to this as well, and it's a topic that we've talked about with our over-the-road drivers, many of whom have created kind of a great community here. One of the things that I think is so important is that people talk about it. My dad always loves to say, we were having a conversation last month about testicular cancer, And, the idea of getting guys comfortable talking about it. I tell this funny story. I walked in from one of my workouts, and my mom wasn't home, and my dad saw me itching down in my nethers, and he said, what's going on there? I said, I just a lot of sweat, a lot of workout. He said, is that a regular thing? I said, no, it's just now. He said, because if it's a regular thing, you got to get that checked out. And we have got to be, men in particular, more comfortable talking about this. We have a regular contributor to this show. Our good friend, 3.5 is his handle. He called in and let people know he'd been through the process, and they caught it and they got to it. How do we encourage men, particularly men in their 50 and above, many of whom have a hard time making friendships after that age? How do we kind of encourage them to develop communities of conversation that allow them to kind of be like, hey, dude, you got to get your pipes checked out. You got to get under the hood and figure out what's going on down there. How do we do that, Troy?
That's a great question, because as men, typically we want to have the air of, hey, we're fairly invincible. Nothing's going to affect us. But the truth is, the odds are against us. And I think if we know what those signs and symptoms are, then maybe we'll be more inclined or more likely to do something. So one thing that we can do just as friends. So if you're around a group of buddies and one of your friends continues to go to the bathroom, be good just to lightheartedly suggest, hey, what's going on? You're going to the bathroom all the time. Bring it up in jest almost. And as guys, we handle that much better sometimes than just that direct talk. But it also happens to be one of those signs and symptoms. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night, or you're having to go several times during the day, more often than most, then that's a sign that your prostate is enlarged, and it could be a sign of potential cancer, or at least something to start looking at. And then the other things are, if you've got a weak flow when you're starting to go to the bathroom, or when you're stopping and you've got some dribble, or it's just not starting fast enough, that's a sign that your prostate is growing and you need to start paying attention to it. The third thing is feeling. So if you have pain when you're urinating or during intimacy, that's something that you certainly need to pay attention to. And if you have those things, then just start talking about it with your friends and saying, hey, is this normal for me to have this? And if nobody else seems to have it, then that may be a good conversation starter, but at least know it yourself so you're dealing with it. And then really the fourth thing that I think people need to know is, if you have blood coming out, that is a sure sign that, hey, something's going on. And it may be as simple as just having an infection in your prostate and it's inflamed, or it could be something as serious as cancer. So all those signs, frequency, flow, feeling, and blood, are things that we need to be comfortable discussing with other people, but especially with ourselves. And if we recognize that, then we want to go to a doctor and really get that checked out and make sure that we're not prolonging things just because we're too busy, or I don't feel like it, or I don't like doctors. That's really not a good excuse to not go and get those things checked out, because like we said, the earlier you catch it, the better off you are.
One of the things that really comes into play here, too, in regards to self-evaluation, I think I'd like to bounce this off of you, is this is where mindfulness really comes into play. Because let's face it, men doing dude things in Dudeville often tends to involve adjusting to an ever-increasing pain. I know people that literally, I know dads that have literally lived with the same growing headache over a period of 5 years and didn't realize how bad the headache became because it's a slow boil. And one of the things that can happen with this, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Troy, is that we often adjust to pain when it is delivered incrementally, meaning that if it's an increasing pain, but it increases in the negative way that we should lose weight. You know, if you lose weight properly, it should be anywhere from half a pound to a pound a week. You shouldn't make for dramatic things. If we wake up one morning and we're in terrible pain down there, we're immediately going to do something about it. Is that often the condition begins kind of insidiously, so that if it gets caught early, it can be taken care of quickly. What happens for a lot of guys is that it's a little twitch, it's a little bit more of a twitch, and that goes on for the better part of a year and a half. By that point, it's too late. It's almost and like I said, the guys always want to avoid being a hypochondriac or a complainer, but it's okay to say, hey, doc, and I'll get to the doctors here in a second too. Hey, doc, it's probably not a big deal. I got a little twitch down there. Can you take a look? I mean, it really is about being mindful. I mean, almost you have to develop strategies to do low-level mindful maintenance on yourself here. That's what we're kind of talking about as well, right?
Absolutely. And, that's the easiest thing for us to do is if there's an issue, don't just count it off as being part of aging or part of whatever's going on. Start to do your own research. Take ownership of your health, because that ultimately is the only thing that we can do to really step in to a situation, especially when you're talking about prostate health. So if you have any of those symptoms that we talk about, that's something that you can, the next time you go to your doctor, and don't put it off for 2 or 3 years, but if you're going to see your doctor within the next couple of months, then be mindful of those things, hold on to them, write them down, take notes about it, whatever it is, put it in your phone, and then say, next time you go in, doc, I noticed that I've had an increase in the frequency of my urination. There's been a little bit of pain in that area. Is there something that I need to do, or something that can be done, or should I be concerned about it? And hopefully that can start a dialogue that, just like checking your engine oil or transmission fluid or anything else you're doing in a car, our bodies are the exact same thing. We are finely tuned machines that we've got to keep at high operating levels. And that's one thing we need to do, is continue those checkups.
One of the things I know you do over at Centurion is one of the commitments that you guys have made is helping people find healthcare providers that actually are proactive, attentive, and actually, really listen to what is going on here. Just like finding a good mechanic isn't just a matter of somebody that can fix you when you're broken. There's somebody who can do your maintenance as well. Can you talk a little bit about how one should go about, as an older man, and when I say older, I don't mean ancient, I just mean as somebody over 40, how one goes about finding the right healthcare provider, what a person should look for, particularly when it comes to the maintenance and upkeep of what I call all the stuff under the hood?
Yeah, I think it starts with you're investing in your own health. So if there's something that's happening, take some time, look through it, do some investigation yourself. And then when you go into the doctor, ask questions, because that's the number one thing we can do. And if that doctor is not willing to answer questions, or pushes you aside, or pushes your questions aside, that's really not a physician that you want to be going to, because what you want is a curious doctor who also cares about you as a person. And if they're not investing in those questions, and they're not concerned about the concerns that you have when it's your health, then they probably aren't the doctor you want to be going to. So I always recommend asking friends, asking family members, and getting down to, is there a doctor who is really taking the time to get to know what your problems are, what your concerns are. And, they're going to be blunt with you, but they're also going to be open to new options and new opportunities, and they're going to be curious. I think one of the best examples recently, just got done with Thanksgiving and talking with my mom about her doctor. And she said, she's getting a little older. She's in her, just about to be in her 80s. And she mentioned that the doctor talked to her and said, you don't have to, just because you're getting older, be accustomed to aches and pains and all these other things that are going on. You can really fight against that. And that's the kind of doctor that I'm hoping that all of us could have, that we don't just go, oh, that's just part of old age, or, oh, that's just part of being a guy. You want a doctor who's going, hey, yeah, that's an issue that happens with a lot of people, but here are some remedies that we can do, and here are things that you can do to help make it a little bit more palatable as you're dealing with that. And you always hope that their first stab at trying to help somebody is not jumping into the medicine cabinet, but they're jumping into other things that really allow you to dictate how well you do with that diagnosis, and taking some of that personal ownership of it as well.
By the way, and looking through Troy's stuff, who joins us this morning, Troy, do me a favor. I've been saying Duell, but I want to make sure I'm saying it proper. Is it Duel or Duell?
It's dual.
Okay,
Yep.
fantastic.
But I go by either. I've been called a lot of things.
Okay. Well, I will keep it between those two words and nothing else. You strike me as a fine man. So I'm going to ask you this question as well too, by way of setting up my own story. I actually looked for a doctor for a long time and had a lot of just bad experiences. The first time I had a good experience was I went to go see this doctor, and he actually had done bare minimum. You can look me up on Facebook or anything. And he was coming in and he said, "I see that you like comedians and all kinds of entertainment stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He said, "I'm going to keep on encouraging to he said, keep on posting all those videos you put up of comedians." He said, "Because the more of that kind of stuff you can watch, the more you laugh, the more it's going to affect your health in really positive ways." He's like, "Just stay out of the slop over there, because it can really affect your heart rate." And it wasn't a big deal. But just at the outset, what he ended up telling me was, you made your appointment, you told me your socials and all that kind of stuff. I looked you up. I had a sense of who you were when you came in here, and we immediately got off on the right foot, and that's so very important. And I just wanted to kind of, echo your sentiments of finding a person who actually cares about you. All right, so let's talk about, you guys have done a lot of deep digging into the latest research about surprising takeaways on nutrition and lifestyle approaches. You hinted towards them earlier with staying in shape and all that stuff. But can you kind of do a little bit of a deep dive on some of the things that people can do on a daily basis, some of the easy lifts that are right in front of us and there for the taking, if only we would do it?
Absolutely. And it may hurt a few people's feelings, so I'll start with the first one. Your mom was absolutely right when she said that you should be eating your fruits and vegetables. We know from studies that fruits and vegetables really, really help the prostate. There are certain ones in particular, like tomatoes, peanuts, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. Those are things that we know really nourish the prostate and keep it healthy. And then omega-3 fatty acids are really a very, very beneficial thing just to keep your prostate healthy. The other thing is, unfortunately, you've got to avoid those greasy foods and alcohol. So processed foods, anything that's fried, you want to avoid if you're having prostate issues. And if you're really struggling and having an increased frequency of going to pee all the time, then you really want to stay away from coffee and tea and anything that's got caffeine in it. And then we know that there are certain vitamins that you should take, and really do that on a regular basis to try to keep as healthy of a prostate as you possibly can. And there were 6, as we were studying, that we found at certain levels seem to have the greatest impact on the prostate itself. And those include selenium, lycopene, which comes out of tomatoes. So selenium actually comes out of the dirt, and actually typically we get it through our fruits and vegetables, but as the farming has kind of broken down, we don't have as much selenium in our soil as we used to. So that's why they recommend going in and supplementing with that. Saw palmetto, which has been around a long time, stinging nettles, beta-cytosterol, and the pomegranate extract. So those are 6 ingredients or vitamins that you can take on a regular basis that seem to help the most. And they help to reduce prostate size, and also some of those ingredients have helped even push off cancer as you're doing that. Now, the next piece will probably get a lot of people upset with me, and it's drink less beer. So unfortunately, it seems that beer has, as we all know, yeast and hops, and the yeast and hops in that tend to irritate the prostate, and it causes serious issues. So if you're having some prostate issues, back off on the beer, back off on alcohol, but beer in particular. And then we know that exercise is a big thing, because it's going to help increase kind of that blood flow and the oxygen to the prostate. And it also helps reduce fat tissues, which store the toxins that kind of really irritate your prostate.
By the
And
way,
then I'll give,
really
yeah,
quickly, I want to just kind of jump in here and add power walking or any sort of jogging, low level jogging, because you don't want to, especially as you get older, split your shins or anything like that. But power walking, anything that involves like stretching is supposed to be really, really good. The deal a friend of mine made is he actually has done a lot of the stuff that you're telling him to do. He likes his beer, and what he discovered is that, I don't know if you know this, but beer and non-alcoholic beer, they have found out, is the best post-workout drink you can have. So he said his trade-off is he has one beer after every workout, and that is the limit of what he has. So it really is about keeping balance and By the way, I don't drink, so I have no dog in this hunt. But it really is about everything in moderation, right? You need to be, and if it gets bad, then cut it out entirely. That's kind of fair.
absolutely, and yeah, totally fair. And in Europe, I don't know, 20 years ago, before they had Gatorade, one of the things that they would do after games or after working out is they would drink a beer, because it tends to have the electrolytes and everything else we need our body to absorb. So it kind of replenishes those things. So you're absolutely right. There's some studies that suggest that one beer is not too terribly bad. Typically the dark beers, but yeah.
I'm
So
laughing about it
kind of,
because I'm saying, guys, this is not a way to go out for a walk for 15 minutes and then have 3 beers. That is not a good strategy. Not a good strategy at all.
no,
We're talking about
no,
working
not.
out and having a cool down afterwards.
That's right. That's right. I can see somebody going out and getting a 6-pack and walking 10 minutes, having a drink, walk another 10 minutes, have a drink. So definitely don't do that. Definitely don't do that.
That won't play itself
Not
out
the
well.
way to make that work. That's right.
How do you?
But
I wanted to ask you how you kind of stay active and stay in shape, because you're a guy who cares about this, because you have a family you care about. So much of this is not just about investing in yourself, but it's about making sure that you're alive. Especially men in their mid-40s who have kids like who haven't even hit teenage years. You want to go play golf with them. You want to see them play baseball. It really is about being active, not just for yourself, but the people you love, right?
absolutely. And I think it just comes down to kind of getting your own process or routine in place. So for me, there are certain things that I try to create as non-negotiables. Things that I don't do is I have avoided Cokes and sodas or anything along those lines, because they're typically just liquid calories that you don't get much benefit from. One can of Coke has 39 grams of sugar, and for a man, you're only supposed to get 36 grams of sugar a day. So you're already over the amount of sugar you should have. So, and we know that sugar leads to inflammation, which even affects the prostate and the rest of our bodies. So you've got to be careful of your diet. When you go out to eat, sometimes it's hard, but have a side salad instead of those side fries whenever you're getting something, just to cut back on the calories. Have water instead of sweet tea or any other drink that may have some calories in it, and cut back on those things. So my I guess fix on that is I do unsweet tea with lemonade as a kind of a diet Arnold Palmer, just to help reduce the calories, because I used to be hooked on sweet tea and drink 4 or 5 glasses at lunch all the time. So I had to do something to change my mindset and change the way I was doing things. And then for some people, it helps to have a cheat day. So every Saturday, have a cheat day that you're going to have your desserts, you're going to have whatever it is, and then the rest of the week, you're going to eat clean and healthy. So those are just a couple of ways that you can certainly set up when you're talking about your diet, to lay out some disciplined process to keep you from going overboard every single day. And from the workout side, I like to try to work out at least 4 days a week with weight training and some cardiovascular. But the other things I'll do during the day is, if I'm in a building that has an elevator, I'll try to take the stairs instead of the elevator. I'll park a little further away instead of trying to get the best spot right up front, because we all need to walk a little bit more during the day anyway. So those are just a couple of little quick cheats that I will do to try to get a little bit more exercise in.
We have only time for one more comment, and I want to make sure we say this because it really is important. People, and I think it also plays to a state of mind too, people who make room for intimacy actually have a better chance of actively engaging in the preventative action of prostate cancer, correct?
That is correct. I was always saving the best for last, and this was not a study done by a bunch of dudes. This was actually done by the National Cancer Institute. So they took 30,000 men, and they found that if you had a healthy love life and you had sex more than, I think it was more than 15 times a month, there was a 33% reduction in prostate cancer risk, with the one caveat being that it only seemed to hold for those who had a solo partner. So didn't work for multiple partners, but if you had a one partner, typically your wife, then you would have that advantage of a reduction in prostate cancer risk.
So if there's somebody you care about them, care about them. I mean, basically, remember that it's you're never too old and it's never too late to take preventative steps. I wanted to end this on a really positive note. I told you about our friend who's a regular caller. This is what he wrote this morning before you even arrived. Morning, gang. Wish I could join in. Just finished my 1-month checkup since prostate cancer surgery. All is good. Doc credits catching it early and being proactive. There you go. Literally everything you said in action. He got it checked out. He got there early. He is done and ready to move on to the rest of his wonderful life of going to car shows, going to truck shows, and driving around the country. Troy, you're welcome back anytime. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you and your wonderful family have a wonderful holiday season planned for yourself as well. Do you?
Absolutely. It's always a good time of the year to get that kind of stuff in. It's a little crazy and hectic, but excited about it and hope you guys have the same, and appreciate you having me on.
Health educator and founder of Centurion Health, Troy Duell. You can find him over at Centurion.health, Facebook.com at the Centurion Way. Love that. Over on the tube of you at Centurion Health and Centurion Health on the Instagrams. Thank you so much, Troy. Have the best of days, my friend.